Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Dafna Kariv. I'm very excited to be here. But first of all, I wish you all the best health, happiness, and calmness. Hopefully, the good days will come and we'll get back to normal. But at the moment, we are not in normal times. We're in quite hectic times. And I'm very, very privileged to have this opportunity that has been developed by my dear colleagues from the Israeli consulate in Germany, in Munich, Mrs. Sandra Sinovich and Mr. Liran Saha, and the dear Peter and all my best friends there. We were thinking about contributing something to the ecosystem. Actually, we have lots of collaborations together. In normal days, delegations come to Israel to see something about, to learn something about the ecosystem of the startups in Israel, and delegation from Israel come to Germany to learn more about the efficiency, the organized work, and the creativity of the German people. So lots of collaboration. And what was so exciting for me is that these guys at the consulate, they just want to bring more value, even if we are remoted. So they invited me to share with you some of my insights about how can we escape those difficulties that we experience now in those hectic days of coronavirus. In fact, the most interesting thing is that we share the idea that there is no point here to either cease or stop the activity. A startup needs to go on, even if they encounter difficulties, and we will go over those things and see real strategies and real practices that we can embed in our startups, and we can implement them and actually pave the way, not only to survive nowadays, under this hectic situation, as I said, but also to pave the way to get the competitive advantage when we are after those days. So I have prepared a presentation, and I will stop from one time to the other just to get some questions or remarks if you have. So let's start. I'm going to share it with you. I hope you can see it clearly. Okay, so we start. This is a very interesting statement that has been released 2 weeks ago from the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And what they have said is that the businesses that invest, and I added now, in strategic, operational, and financial resilience to emerging global risk will be better positioned to respond and recover. And actually, this is exactly what we are going to discuss today. So a glimpse about myself. I'm a professor in entrepreneurship. I'm the chair of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Department at a college in Israel, located not very far from Tel Aviv. I'm also an affiliate professor at HEC Montreal and a teaching visiting professor in many places around Europe and in the States. I'm the former vice president at the same College of Global Initiatives and Development. I'm a researcher. I write many books all around entrepreneurship and innovation. And actually the 6th one that I'm just about in the midst of writing it is on startups under crisis. No wonder, very timely. In the practical part, I'm the founder and the chair of Novus. Novus is the Center of Entrepreneurship, which is located at the College of Management. We started by an incubator. It's turned to be quite successful. And then we developed an accelerator. It also has been successful, and I'll give you some examples about what those startups are already doing now in order to scale up and to prepare themselves for the day after. And I'm also co-founder of a private business, Futuring, which means the future of mentoring and mentoring of the future. And my colleague is also here, Reevaluate Priorities. Here is the agenda for today. So I have many things to share with you and preferably face-to-face. We could discuss it more thoroughly, but this is the situation, so we will work with what we have. So we will go briefly on the general data about the effects of the coronavirus on the economy as a general picture, and then we will delve into the impact on startups. I call the startups a dual layer form, and I will explain why and how can we scale it nowadays. And then I will share with you two main things. One would be the direction to keep your startup in motion. We need to, as we say, to keep the wheel in motion. And I will look at the business, at the entrepreneur or the founder and the ecosystem. So this would be one thing, mainly strategies, insights, and suggestions. And then we will go down into the ground, into the practices, something that is more generic. You can use it for the here and now and make it happen and implement things that really would enable you to keep the startup in motion. Of course, we will have some Q&As, and as I said before, whenever you have some questions, I will stop from one time to the other and look at my WhatsApp here to make sure that I can respond your questions when you have them. I will use some case studies as an examples just to taste and feel the ground. I'm in touch with the ground right now, and I can feel both emotions, the concern, and then the good vibe of hope. This is very important for me to set in advance the goal of this webinar, and this is again something that we have developed together with my friends at the consulate. And this picture is not chosen mistakenly. This has a meaning. So you see here people that are struggling. You see here people that are helping. You see here people that are trying to cross the road. We are not sure if they would succeed or not. And we see those that succeeded. So the idea is to see that there is a road, there is a path. We are there for you. And we hope you will succeed. So these are the goals. Keep the startup in motion, paving the platform for your business competitive advantage on the day after, avoiding ceasing operations. I hear so many startups that say, okay, I will restart when everything is normal. And I say, no, don't do that. It's very, very damaging. It's very risky. Don't do that. So we will discuss how can we not do that. Surviving is very important. So we'll see what can we do in order to survive. Exploiting opportunities, and I will delve into that because this is very, very important, and then prepare strategically for the day after. So let's start by the overview. The overview, I think that one of the most important things to say about the overview is that there is no formal report from any formal association, foundation, governmental body that says something that is stable, trustful, and we can really lean on that. It's panicked. Every day you have different types of information, and what I have here are some aggregated points that I've just put here in order to discuss them very briefly, but I must stress that these are not the one and formal and official report that we can lean on. So it's panicked also in terms of documenting what's happening. But if we look at the coronavirus impact on the economy, so we see several things of interest. And this is not yet specifically regarding the startups, but it has a lot of relationship and connections. So for example, we see panicked financial markets. We see that it's extremely unstable. There is a new term now, the panic buying. It refers mostly to households. People are buying, and there are storage of food and medicine and everything in every household. I'm not sure that people would use that, but there is a kind of a panic buying. And of course, it is very much related to shortages. We start to experience some shortages of supply at the moment, the medicine and food, but because the panic buying is also something that might penetrate into startups as well, and new and young businesses. Then we can also experience some other shortages in the long term. Unemployment, this is very important and very, I would say, interesting, even though it's concerning. The unemployment is mostly based on temporal unemployment and on urban unemployment. Yet, we don't know if the temporal would stay temporal, because we don't know if the companies that have done the layoffs will stay in the same format and will be able to get back or to attract back their workers. And I will get to this also in looking at another angle in a moment. In terms of the VCs. So the VCs now are in a very fragile situation. In fact, we see three types of VCs. One type is the VCs that are really scouting intensively, very, I would say, hectically, dynamically, in order to invest, to be the first ones to invest in firms, startups, and initiations that are directly, I would say, related to the development of the cure. So this is one type. The second type are also scouting, also quite proactive, but they do not offer that amount of money as the first type. And these VCs would like to invest in startups that are doing something that is related to the coronavirus crisis, but not necessarily to the cure, to the medicine, or to the vaccine. So it would be something about remote education, something about older people, something about indoor sports, something about gamification and analytics and so forth. There is a third type. They are very confused. They actually don't do much. They are very, I would say, passive. They still work with their portfolio, but they don't do much other than that. So we see that VCs are also reacting in a way to this coronavirus situation. And then we have some very interesting changes in the ecosystem. Several sectors became overnight irrelevant. Restaurants, malls, stores, show business, movies, we don't use them anymore. We are all in quarantine, we are all at home, and we transform all our activities at home. Tourism, of course. And then we have also the opposite side. Some sectors and some products became vital overnight. So it might be the best thing, the lucky day for them, but not all of them have a solid platform to maintain it. So for example, deliveries, they were not used to that quantity of popularity, actually, and attraction of their products, of the services, or even the medicine, medical devices, medical technology, pharmaceutical. So they were used to have a very long span of time for the R&D, for affirmation, confirmation, testing, analysis, and so forth. And nowadays, they are under very severe pressures to shorten this span. So again, their platforms are really unstable at the moment. So we see quite a pessimistic picture, giving us maybe the feeling that we are driving very fast into the dark, into the unknown. And when we see such release like that on Germany, the German economy could shrink by 5.4% this year due to the coronavirus, then we feel very distressed and unsure. But let me show you what's happening in the startup ecosystem. And I will sort it into two. So first we will look at the bad news, and then we will look at the good news, and we will try to scale them and to see what we can do with the good news. But there are bad news. What can we do? There are bad news. So here are the bad news. For example, startups already report on a decline in investments. so they don't get not much money and not much interest from investors. This is in the whole, not specifically in those specific medical or pharmaceutical sectors. Then many startups report on experiencing difficulties in liquidity. Of course, they don't have much sales, they don't have much projects, so it is shown. They have to have some layoffs of people, and this is very interesting. And I said before that there is something very, I would say, weird or unexpected about unemployment. So unemployment at the moment, even deriving from startups, is a temporal unemployment. So startups, for example, would say to their employees, to the experts, we don't have money now to provide you with, and we don't have projects to provide you with the budget, and we will need to release you temporarily. Now, at this stage exactly, the big companies, they still have some money, they still have a different platform relating or comparing to startups. So they find it a very good time to hire the experts that were fired, at least temporarily, from startups. It means that startups, when everything is over and we get back to normal, maybe they will not be able to attract back their experts. So this is something that is really concerning, and I have to take it into consideration. We also see that there is a slowdown for demand for tech workers. Many managers of accelerators, funds, VCs, and so forth, they are very concerned about their portfolio, and they are not sure that the startups there would be able to finish this year with cash, with enough cash. Startups are reporting about trouble in closing deals, new deals. So they have to reduce budgets. And of course, they are experiencing frequency of absence at work. So they don't have in a regular basis their employees, which is of course very interrupting. We see here the sectors that are most affected by the coronavirus in terms of the startups. So startups in the services, in the wholesales, in the manufacturing and retail are the most affected from those situations and those impact and influences that the coronavirus is bringing us. So these are the bad news, but I promise to look at the good news as well, and there are. And I'm going to discuss them in different angles. So again, it's not by mistake that you see here Netflix and Zoom and Walt. There are some sectors that are really prospering now. And we need to decipher what exactly they do. Not because there is an external situation that is looking for those sectors, but looking and trying to learn and trying to embed in our startups and trying to adjust it to our startups and see what do they do in order to supply the demand, in order to maintain the needs and tastes and expectations of their clients. So of course we see that products and services in the medical device, in the medical technology, in digital health, diagnostic, pharmaceutical, and all these products, as I said before, they are very prosperous now. But we also see those products that, as I said before, are related, even though they are related in a second loop, not the first tier, but the second one, but still they are related to our lives under the coronavirus crisis. Everything that has to do with education, you see here education, this is education nowadays. Kids are just taking the cellular, the mobiles, and they're learning, experiencing. It's a completely new era of education, which is very, very interesting. And we have to understand what does it entail and how can we learn from it. And not necessarily only for products in education. we can combine, we can fuse between things that we see in education and combine them with the food tech or with the smart cities or whatever we do. The second thing is gamification. Everybody now is consuming lots of games, many types of games, many types of leisure time. So this is very important, home sports and many other things. So lots of prosperity. This is a good sign. A second thing, this is very interesting. Financial support today has not only boomed, but also expanded. And many bodies and companies that would say in a prior time, prior to the coronavirus, that they don't have budget and they cannot allocate money. Nowadays, they suddenly have some budget. So, and this might be different types of offices, governmental offices, or world organizations that were more focused on other things. Largest companies that were a bit, I would say, I wouldn't say cheap, but they were a bit limited or less generous, I would say that, in providing money. So now they not only provide money as investments, but also as donations. The richest funds like Bill Gates and his wife and many others, they also donate all around the areas connected to the coronavirus crisis. And this is a very good sign as well, because when everything comes back, we will remember that. And we will approach them and say, you know, you had some money and budget, and you were very generous when there was a crisis. But we need to develop ourselves, and we need to develop the world. So it's a good time now to be also generous. And the other thing, the third one, is a dramatic increase there. And again, in those products that are related to the coronavirus crisis. And we need to understand exactly how these sales are done, what is the impetus, how can we learn from it, and just take them as is, as packages, and adjust and embed into our startups. So these are very good indications. Yes, it's only in specific sectors, but the more we look at those sectors, or the more we look at the good news of the effects or the impact of coronavirus on startups, the more we see more and more products and more sectors. So it is expanding, and this is very good. And I would like to show you something else. This is something that is Israeli related. I didn't find such reports from other countries. I would encourage to do that. This has to do with the mood, with the vibe, with how we feel about this crisis. So Viola, which is a platform to support startups, they have conducted this research on tech startups in Israel. And you see that, you see something that is really vibrant, something that is optimistic. I will not go through each one of the figures, but we see that people in startups, they have not ceased their either their plans and implementation. This is focused on marketing, but there are some other indicators as well. They are still going, they are still optimistic. They have some plans for a bad day, but they have not implemented it yet. And most of them, they feel very prepared to work from home. We see good vibe. So when we see good vibe and we see those signs of the sectors, we say, we can leverage it. And that's what we're going to do here. And this is my idea. This is what I've come to, and this is what I want to share with you. Startups are simultaneously both very negatively affected. We saw that, the bad news, but also very, very fortunate to be startups in this coronavirus and not to be the big companies. And I will explain why. Here are the typifications and characteristics of startups. Startups are agile. They are very motivated and ready to pivot, mainly because they don't see the loss so as a catastrophe, like a big company. They might be agile and ready to pivot because they are smaller, they have very thin platform in terms of operations and financial investment and so on, comparatively to the big companies. And of course, as I said, they don't have much to lose compared to the big companies, but they also have an entrepreneurial vibe. And the entrepreneurial vibe is something that puts them in motion. And some of them would look at the crisis as an opportunity, and we will discuss how. In fact, the fourth point is, I think, the major point, the most substantial. Startups are born into crisis and frustration. They start with an idea, and then the idea would not work. It's not feasible. They don't have the technology doesn't work. They wanted some money. The investor didn't give them the amount of money they were expecting to. There is no market for it. It's a roller coaster. So they have so many crises. It means that they are equipped with the strategies and the tools and even the mindset to either escape or fight those crises and frustration. Moreover, they are proactive in exploiting opportunities, and I will go over this because this is very, very important in a few minutes when we look at the direction to beat this coronavirus impact. Another thing that is important, and it's most important for the day after, is that startups nowadays, they are sought after. Everybody wants to see the startups. What do they do? How do they invent? How do they develop? What do they do for the cure, or for easing, or for facilitating the things that are over? So they're in a very good position nowadays. They're always in a good position. Everybody longs to be a startup one day. But nowadays, when everybody is looking on startups and on new initiations and new innovation, they are positioned in a very good place. And then something that is really important, and we know that startups are already equipped with innovation practices. Actually, we know that most of the companies, the big companies, the ones that are really, they have an innovation approach. What they do is they bring some challenges to startups, and they ask the startups in an open innovation platform to bring them with innovations in order for the company to embed those innovations inside the company, which means that everybody is seeking for innovation. So when you take all these together, you see that to be a startup in a crisis, just to understand how and where can you direct the vehicle in the right way, but to be a startup in a crisis, it's a very good place. And I would like to show you two examples, which maybe will illustrate what I'm saying. And then I'm going to stop for a moment before I start to share with you the directions and practices. So here are the two examples. One example is very, very dear to me. It's a startup, Soapy. This startup has been founded 2 or 3 years ago, actually in our Center of Entrepreneurship in Novus, started in the accelerator. And the founder, Max, he had an amazing social idea of maintaining the hygiene of kids in India. And this was his vision. So he took a container, a plastic container, and this container could transform air into water. This is not a patent. This is something that is really simple, just to take a container, plastic container, put it on a hot place, and then it turns to drops of water. So it's pure water. But Max has added a device, which is a smart device. It's an IoT that enables to measure the exact drop of the soap and the water. So when someone washes their hands, they get the right amount of soap and water. So it means that many, many people, I think millions in India, were very happy with this, and they could maintain their hygiene. And of course, it could preserve the environment. So this is the this is the startup. And the financial model was funded based on foundations and on many bodies that wanted to support the kids in India. So this was the situation. Nowadays, Max has identified the opportunity of washing hands, which is something that is preventive. It is very, very important nowadays for the coronavirus. It could actually prevent the infection. So he just targeted the market of the potential infected or infected people in the coronavirus. So he was now nominated from the Forbes as one of the 80 Israeli medtech companies that are fighting the coronavirus. You see here, what does it mean to identify an opportunity and then to switch a bit the market, and then you see how it's scaled. I see that we have questions. I just want to add another example on opportunities, and then I will look at those questions. This is a second very interesting startup. I don't know them. I just found them for the sake of this webinar. CU, and CU actually is a platform, very interesting platform. They set cameras in the big stores and in malls and so forth in order to make some analytics and provide to the managements of those malls and stores about lines, about overcrowding and so forth. So nowadays they of course don't have businesses because malls are closed and so the stores. So they decided to switch a bit something in their platform. So it's not only identifying an opportunity, but also exploiting it and doing something, a bit of a change in a feature in the platform. And they are monitoring now the social distance. So people would know that when we come back to the malls and to stores, some of the supermarkets are already or still open. So this monitor or this platform would enable people to know even by sound, there would be a sound, to hear if they are too close to one another. And this would also prevent infections. So this is the first part of this webinar, and I'm going to look at those questions. So Rotem. Okay, so Rotem is asking about the recommendations, and this is the second part, and I'm going to address it. So I'll start to explain, and then if you have other questions, I'll be happy to answer. And then, specifically in the in specific industries, I will have to check. I can do that, of course, but not necessarily now. So Anya, I'll get in touch with you. I am part of several communities that work on the ways to enable different industries and sectors to escape the difficulties in different, as I said, in different verticals. And I'm going to ask specifically about what you're looking for. So when we finish the webinar, please get in touch with me and be more precise what exactly you would like to know. And I will ask my community and get back to you with more exact responses about that. If we have any other questions, let me look at the WhatsApp so I know that I'm not missing anyone here or there. Lots of social media. So, okay, I see that these are the questions at the moment. No, I have another one. Okay, great. So let's go to the next part. I'm going to share with you again my presentation. The next part is the directions that I'm recommending. And this is very interesting, but this statement. In disruptive times, the power comes from people, so from you. External situations would have their own ways to pivot us, but we are the ones that can control ourselves and our operations, and that's what I'm going to share with you. Here you can see it's a blessing. In a nutshell, the blessing says, let me control and operate things that are under my control. So we have the coronavirus, we cannot do anything about that, but I have my startup and I have my community and I have my ecosystem, and give me the power and the courage to do there what I'm entitled to do and not to stop and be freezed. So I would like to share with you different directions on how to keep the startup in motion. And I will, as I said, sort it into 3 sectors or 3 topics. One would be focused on the business itself. The second one would be focused on the entrepreneur, the people that are either founding or managing the business. And then the ecosystem, which is very important, and sometimes we forget about it, but it's very important nowadays. Let's start about the business. What would be the directions to keep in motion when we look at the business? Let me see, we still have another question. Okay, so again, these are very, very good questions that I'm seeing here, specifically about different sectors. Let me go over those directions and see if I can also address 2 specific verticals. Okay, and then if I do not respond exactly according to your expectations, as I said, specifically to the verticals, then I have those communities. I'm going to ask them specifically about this and that, and we will get in touch. And this is actually one of my recommendations, to be in touch. I mean, I'm your network now. You are my network now. We will get in touch and you will see how valuable it will be for the long term. Okay, let's see about the business. So, about the business, first of all, this is the time to innovate, 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 and gain the competitive advantage for the day after. This is the big idea, okay, big idea. But how? How do we do that? The first thing is to digitalize your business activities. And I guess that some of you would say, okay, everything is digitalized already. So I have a very interesting example. One of the startups that I'm meeting now and trying to work with the founders there, it's a platform for purchase, a digital platform for purchase of tickets for football games, for shows, and so forth. So you understand they don't have any business at all now. So they decided to digitalize a new platform based on their own platform that is a direct path to their users, I mean, former users, former customers. And they just, they have some very intensive communications with them. The digitalized platform is very easy, very friendly user. And they turned those users, again, former users, to collaborators. So the former users, they have meetups with them, they form the community, and they also provide them with their own expectations, needs, tastes, and so forth. You understand that by doing such a thing, of course, the next stage is much more promised for them, because they already have an engaged community that is deriving them and leading them towards the ways that they, or the expectations that they would like to see in the next stage. So this is very important to try to ease the digitalized platforms, even if you have look creatively in a creative way, how you can either make them more feasible, more friendly user, the UI might be better, or even take another vertical, another market, and see how can you use it. The second thing is very important is to build now the strategic partnerships. And here too, it's very interesting. I have many startups that I recommend to do that, and they do it. Usually what they say is that in a normal competitive market, we are a bit hesitant as markets, as startups, to get to a well-known partner, big companies or a VC or whatever. We are not sure that we are the ones that he would choose, and maybe it's a very competitive market. But this is a time where everything is chaotic. I saw, for example, many strategic partnerships, I would say offerings from different companies that are looking for startups to be part of them. So this comes from the other side, from the companies. But I suggest to you, to startups, just reach out for companies that you always visualize yourself doing some partnerships with them. They are also in a chaotic situation. They might also be struggling now. They also lost many things now. They are in an uncertainty like you, maybe in a different level, but they are also in a very crazy time. And it's a very good time for them and for you to get in touch. They will not throw you out of the office like they might do when everything is normal and the competition is very, very intensive. Another thing that is really important is to build a platform, and I would like to show you a very interesting example here. So you see here, it's a startup, Zensource, that uses machine learning to track occupancy in restaurants. Again, restaurants are isolated right now. Nobody goes to restaurants, and of course, there are no lines in restaurants. Even if the restaurant is open, no lines, of course. So what they have done, they have taken the platform and provided it for free to airports. Now, what does it mean? It means that they have built now, by providing the platform, a new stream of partnerships with airports. So when times go back to normal, they may have other clients in the airports as well, the restaurants in airports. They also understand something about how the processes in airports are operated, which could be very interesting for them in order to embed them for different purposes. Now, the airports also have a glimpse into what they do. So there might be interesting technological and operational collaborations in the future. So being generous and taking that platform, the already existing platform, and providing it to partners, it would be maybe one of the tools for getting strategic partnerships. But it's very, very important. Rather than to leave the platform again without any use at the moment because the restaurants do not function anymore, it is very important to see how we can use it in a different way. Also, I know startups don't like that, but you can take care of the neglected processes in your business. We have so many things that we have to organize. This is a good time, and also a good time for the next point here, reevaluate priorities. Sometimes we are stuck with things that we really don't need them. So customers that are not profitable anymore, or maybe doing some damages to us, or workers or machineries, and act. This is a very good excuse to say now, sorry, I cannot afford it, and just, reduce whatever you don't need. But in the other side, it's very important to strengthen relationship with your employees and co-workers because there will be the ground, and there will be the place where the trustful place and the trustful ground and basis for your success when things go back. And as I said, opportunities are very important, and I think that we have to delve into it to understand them very profoundly, because this is a key of success. It's a key of success for startups anyway. But in these times, when startups are fortunate to be part of the crisis, and when they are in a stage of startups and not companies, let's see what can we do. So when we look at those three terms, identifying an opportunity would mean to maybe look at the different markets, but do not touch the product or the services themselves or technology. Exploiting would mean to look at different markets, but by adjusting something in the product itself. And creating would mean starting something from scratch. It's timely, it's good to start it. So Sophie, for example, they didn't touch the product, but they identified a fantastic opportunity. So they targeted an expanded market. And CU were exploiting. I would like to show you another, or to present another interesting case of Moonrun. Moonrun, what they do, they have elastic bands that are actually enabling people to jog indoors. And they have done that for people that do not want to go outside, either due to the weather and so forth, or to other reasons. Nowadays, everybody is doing their sports indoors. And they also had originally, I mean, this is not something that they have developed specifically for the coronavirus, but they have an IoT wearables, so that can monitor the body measures when you jog. And it has also a very interesting gamification part, so you can compete the best runners, like Usain Bolt or someone, or you can run in the beautiful mountains of or you know, places around the world. So this is the product, but they have figured out that nowadays, when everybody is trying to find the different types of sports indoors, they can add a feature which is not very expensive. And the feature is just to measuring the temperature, the fever, the body fever. Everybody is very concerned about the body fever to make sure that they are not infected by the coronavirus. So just adding this would be, and they did that, would be very beneficial and profitable for them. So they had exploited a new opportunity, and here they are, they scaled up during these very interesting times. Now look and see a very interesting startup marketplace that has created opportunities. So this is Upwork. There was no such platform before. Of course, we know marketplaces, but the specific concept of this marketplace is really, as I said, timely, and this is really engaging the big companies. As I said before, big companies are now hiring people because they think it's a very good time to hire people, and they are right. And those temporarily unemployed people, some of them are really specialists and experts. So this platform is only for short-term projects and tasks, and something that's really very fitting nowadays, the situation. So you see how you can create a startup because you found an opportunity. So in a nutshell, you have a lot of work to do in your business. It's not very, I would say, difficult to do. It's not costly. You can do it. You will be busy, so you will not have time to be distressed or stressed. and you will do something that will promise at least partially your competitive advantages, your preparedness to the day after. But this is not enough. So you took care of the business. What about yourself? It's very important to take care of yourself. So we have two streams here, two perspectives. One would be the skills, and the other one would be the mindset. So in terms of the skills, it's important now to invest in yourself, to take classes. There are many classes now that are given for free. I got an ad from the Harvard Business School on a course in happiness and resilience, which is for free, and I will take it. That Coursera, Udemy, and many others, they just provide some courses for free, or at least sessions. And then you will be equipped with the knowledge and strategies and tools for the day after. It's very important. It's a good time to get a mentor. If you don't have money for that or budget for that, then barter. You have something to give for this person. It's very important. You gain a lot of insights. Then you have to dare and to train yourself. It's interesting. One of my colleagues that I know, he is a CMO in a startup. So he's focused on marketing, but his dream is to be a CTO. The next stage would be a CTO. So what he does now is that he initiated a kind of, I would say, community-based initiation, where he took the responsibility of the technology. So this is something that provides the community with many information about the situation and monitoring and so forth. So he accumulated people, so he has now some people, team expertise, but he took the responsibility for the technological part. So he is training himself, at least in order to taste it, to understand if this is really what he wants to do. And then he would be able to get to take maybe better decisions when he decides to withdraw from the CMO and be part of the CTO. So it's very important for you to train yourself. It's a very, very good opportunity. Another thing for you is to train your creativity. This is something amazing that I saw, an interview of Meir. Meir is the founder of Travel Perk. I don't know this startup. I just read the interview, but it's a platform for tourism, so you can imagine that they don't have any business now. But he really trained his creativity and he spread it out. He was looking really out of the box. So what he decided to do now with what he has is to provide concierge services, to provide deliveries of products, and then to hire engineers to build new features for times of crisis in the tourism. And then he collaborated, or is in the midst of collaborating with insurance companies again for the next crisis. It's very interesting because you see he was actually pivoting from the original core of his business, but this is something that would be at least now, and I'm sure that also in the day after, very, very beneficial, because he started right now to craft the networking, the strategic partnerships, to go to blend different technologies with different industries, and not to be stuck in the same sector. We know now that nothing is solid and nothing is stable, and each crisis may bring different instability and uncertainty for different products and sectors. So it's better to be in relationship with many I would say industries and technologies in order to be more stable, or at least to have the feeling that you are more stable. It's a very good time for you to make some benchmarking. to understand what's going on with your competitors, and also to share, of course, to see if you can, again, craft some other relationships with them. And then to get acquainted with unreachable figures and bodies. And this is very interesting. One of my colleagues from a different university here in Israel, so he is teaching online like I do with my students, and he decided to reach out for those celebs, as we call them, the ones that are unreachable. So they are always busy and they have their own charm and so forth. So it's very difficult to get to those people. They might be comedians, actors, singers, people from the arts and so forth. So for every for every one of his sessions, he's inviting one of these celebs to come and just to address the students. So for example, the actor just shared with the students how can they act when they want to persuade something or negotiate with someone. Or when the artist came, so he he introduced actually his expertise about infographics and how you can express yourself by art. So it's very interesting, and you can do that. This is the best time to do that, because celebs, for example, they don't have work anymore. They're struggling themselves. They like you, they want to have their own network, and they want to get some mentors, and they want to enlarge their businesses, and they are struggling. So they are as interested as you are to get together. So it's very important. One more thing that is maybe something I would say from heart to heart: be generous. It's very important. It's very valuable. I would like to show you several companies, startups that are really generous nowadays. I started by a German one, Scout B. It's a German supply chain software for startups. And they're offering now access to their services in order to make the supplies of medicines quick and in a good way. So it's generosity. It's very important. You see here another one that is a Swedish digital healthcare company that provides free web platform in order to keep the connection between doctors and patients. And then you see Doctor Care Anywhere. It's UK located. It's a digital healthcare company that is offering training online for free. You see an Ukraine-based online pharmacy startup that has launched specifically a free delivers medicines during the quarantine. And this is very important and very beneficial for you, for structuring your next collaborators and next relationships. And actually it encompasses everything that I've just said regarding the business and regarding the entrepreneurial skills. But there is something more about you, which is very important, and don't forget that. And this is the mindset. So we saw that the moods, at least of the Israeli founders in startups, in tech startups, is good. It's not the best one, but it's good. And you must keep it. You must keep it. So for example, one of the things that you have to do is to identify your strengths and to stick with them, and to make sure that you know and you are convinced that any coronavirus could not erase them. These are your strengths. So even if you have now difficulties, you are still very charismatic, or still very creative, or still the best person for marketing or finance or whatever. And this is you. And it's very important to bear this in mind. And then surround yourself with positive people and get rid of the negative ones, because they could be really, really painful at the moment. It's not necessary to be part with such a surrounding. Preserve your values and vision, which says that if you target to a vision, so you will get it. You have your strengths, you have your positive people around you. you will get it. You will get there. And maybe not now, but you have to keep them in mind and you have to strive to do that. It's the best time to say no. Sometimes we don't know how to say no, but this is a fantastic opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I don't have time, I don't have the energy, and just, just to refuse things that you cannot do now. And something else which is really, really interesting, and I tried it and it works, just to list the people that you are thankful and you have gratitude and you appreciate them. You don't have necessarily to call them and to say thank you. You might, but this is not necessary. And it turns that research says actually that neurologically, when you think about people that have done something that elevated you or encouraged you, it does something hormonally and internally that enables you to be much more confident, much more happier, much more with the feeling of self-efficacy. So I did that, and it works. So, and actually, it's so simple to do that. So why not? So in a nutshell, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to understand that this is a fantastic opportunity when everything is chaotic, to take everything into your control, to see what would you like to advance? What are the things that you say, no, thank you, this is not for me now. Train yourself, get a partner, get a mentor, get to the unreachable people. You will get to them. They will, most of them will say, yes, I want to partner with you. You will see that, so try it and be generous. So this is for the entrepreneurial side. And before we get to the practices, I would like to stress the meaning of the ecosystem. Sometimes the ecosystem would look like the third tier. So there is me, there is my business, my team, and there is the ecosystem, so someone else can take care of the ecosystem. No, that's not true. You have to take care of the ecosystem because it will take care of you. Whatever you give, you will be given back. So it's very, very important. So what does it mean to take care of the ecosystem? So first of all, to participate in webinars, it's very important. All the people that are participating now, even those that were just pointing that they are interested and did not have the chance to participate, you understand that they share the same interest like you, and this would be your network. You can start conversations with them, benchmarking, have new insights, new ideas. It's very important because the selection has already been made for you. So rather than to look for people that share the same ideas and the same interests as you see, because all of them are attracted to the same topic. So this is very important. If you can initiate webinars, it's amazing. You can do that. It will be very beneficial. The second thing is contribute with your knowledge and with your experience, and just share with others. It's important, and most of all, be valuable. And I would like to present again something that I adored it when I saw it. It's an example of the value that you can bring to the ecosystem. So what you see here is an escalator. Of course, when we use the escalator, we put our hands, which is very, very dangerous nowadays because it could be, very infected. And now when we are very cautious about the bacteria and viruses and so forth, then it's really dangerous. So usually what they do, they in the malls or offices, they just call the cleaning companies to clean everything with chemicals. But it turns to be that ultraviolet light, they can also kill bacteria and viruses. I didn't know about that, but I just looked and it was interesting to learn that. So these two persons, they have developed a light box of a design free of charge that is actually an advertising for them. And it cleans the bacteria, but it also reminds everybody to be more cautious when they use the escalators. So you see what's the value here for the ecosystem and what's the value for those two initiators. Another thing is to gain insights from the other and be open. It's interesting to see the transformation. I'm working with some startups in a regular basis, and they might be a bit, I would say, maybe, well, not that much open to other ideas. Okay, I say it very carefully. Nowadays, they are looking for new ideas. And actually, I'm pushing them to do that. I tell them, you know, you had your own way. Things are different. There are changes. There might be more changes. We don't know. Everything is uncertain at the moment. Be open. Just gain more and more and more knowledge and insights from the others, not necessarily from the classes, but from the ecosystem. And you will see what to do with it. But first of all, just store them in your knowledge, which is very important. As I say, it's a great time to hook the unapproachable stakeholders. And you see here the VCs, as I said before, the angels, the venture capitalists, the ones that are supporting and funding startups. They are very confused now. I got some offers to disseminate to my startups and my students for support, and I figured out that those unapproachable VCs are now, I would say, very generous. So the bureaucracy is not as difficult as it was, and everything is much smoother. So it's a good opportunity to look at the ecosystem and try to get to those people as well. Maybe not for now, but for the next stage. Also, use social media for anything you do. Use social media. It has two very interesting functions. One is that people see you. It's like the light that I saw you in the escalator. So people see you and they understand that you are active and you are trustful and you do things and you are not seizing and you are not distressed, and they can trust you. It's a very good sign. Secondly, for your resilience, sometimes we know that we do things, but when I look at the social media, now we are on Facebook, so let's look at Facebook, and I see that 2 weeks ago I've done that, and I have pictures, and 1 week ago I've done that, and today. So I get an empowerment, an internal empowerment. Wow, I'm doing things. I'm active. I'm really putting the wheel in motion. So it's very important for both functions. And then if you can start a community or be part of communities, you will gain a lot, even psychologically and socially. But as I said, since we are working, since we are focused today on the work, so it would be very beneficial for your professionality, for your business, and for any other plans for the next stage. So before I get to the third part, which are the practices, I would like to see if you have questions about those directions. Again, those directions are suggestions that you have to adjust them to your startup. In fact, as I told my friends from the consulate, we provide, my team and I, we provide 3 sessions for free for each startup that is interested in working on the adjustments of those suggestions on how to plan for the day after. So this is something that we do and we contribute. We hope to bring value and to adjust jointly the activity that you do or those directions to the activity that you do. So if you have questions before we go to more generic practices, I'll be happy to answer. Okay. Yeah, Joe. Okay, so Joe has a very, very interesting question, and I would like to address it. So, so this is something that you have experienced. Now you're in the midst of negotiating funding, and the ones that you were discussing with are on hold now. Actually, the whole economy is in hold now. As I said before, we have three types of VCs at the moment, and maybe these are probably this is the third type, the ones that are still waiting to see what's happening. So you have to leverage something in the value that you bring in order to see if you can encourage them to invest in you. And actually, there might be two different streams here, maybe more, but two different streams. One would be to maybe to think more thoroughly about how you can convince them that this is the perfect time for them. And there will be the winners there to invest in you. And the second stream would be to see if there are different ways to invest in your company. For example, and I will go first to the second stream. One of the startups that we are working with, they had the same problem, and actually we find many startups that feel very insecure now because they are not sure whether they will get the investment promised to them. Some of them have already used the money because they were sure that they will get the investments. So this startup decided to experience the crowdfunding, and at the moment they are doing very, very well. So it could be an opportunity. Another startup that we are working with in our team is a startup that is working with big companies. So they have also negotiated with VCs, and the VCs now is in hold. Again, the third type, they are not sure that this is a good time for them to invest. So this startup decided to go to the big companies. It's a startup in the areas of robotics. So they just approach the big companies in robotics, and they are now negotiating with them. It's a different business model. It's a different financial model, but it might be interesting for them, at least now, since we are not sure when this crisis will be over. So for them, it is a good idea to do that. So this is the second stream, just to think differently. So if we are not sure about one investor, maybe we can think about different types and sources of funding our product, our startup. But looking at those specific investors, if you have a good relationship with them and you want to stick with them, and you feel that you are secure with them, and you have confidence and trust, then I think that the best thing to convince them is to work now on two, I would say, again, two streams. Now, one would be to tell them that it's a good time for them. I mean, everything is in hold and you are in hold and the activity is reduced now and budgets are not the same. So it's a very good, economically based and financially based, it's a very good opportunity for them to invest in you. Maybe you have to look back on the contract and to see how you do that. Maybe you will not meet the same expectations or the same terms that you have thought about them before, but it's very good financially, and you can work again with a mentor or a doctor, someone that is very proficient in the finance, in taxation, in anything that has to do with the investment, and to see creative ways of looking at the contract, so they will feel that they have lots of value. The second thing is much more, I would say, in the ideation type or in the ideation approach. Why not looking at your process, at your product, which is a 100% natural health products, as to improve immune system. Wow. I mean, this is something that is really, really related to what we experience now. Many people we are isolated at home. Their immune system is very low now. People don't see the sun. Any effects of being isolated also reduces our immune system. You know much more than me about that. And you are in the front. I mean, this product is in the front. So you have to tell your investors, I'm actually fighting the crisis now, and I'm doing something that enables people to feel better, or maybe avoid some diseases that are related to the coronavirus. So it's not actually curing the coronavirus itself, but it has lots of impact, as I see here, and it's immune system health. This is what I think. I mean, again, I'm not expert in specifically in the immune and the system and so forth, but I would approach them and say, I'm in the front line. You are, Joe, and your team, you're in the front line, and you give something that is really, really valuable now. And I would say very politely that you guess that many other investors would be very interested in investing in such a product and such a startup in those times, because maybe people would prefer to have your products rather than to take chemicals and medications and use those natural products in order to feel better and safer and so forth. So this is my recommendation. If you have other questions, I'll be happy to answer. Let me see here if we have on the WhatsApp. So no, I don't see. Oh, yeah. No more questions. Okay, great. So let's go to the third part. Again, I will share my last slide. And this is the slide on the 8 practices for startups. And these practices are more generic. They demand less adjustment. The other suggestions, they go deeper and you have to think about that. But here you can actually implement them when we finish this webinar. So, and I guess as Israeli, I would say, I promise that it would be very, very beneficial. I guess the German people are much more realistic than I am. So I'm not sure I can promise that, but at least it will improve something. So what are the practices? First of all, the first point is to operate in a lean model. Work from home, be very modest, make sure that you work with the employees that you need them, make sure that you can work with those contracts or those customers that you really have value from them and they are profitable. Everything should be very lean. This is not the time to think big. I mean, you can think big and you can plan big, but in terms of implementation practices, lean models would be the best thing at the moment to operate your business. The second thing is very interesting. Ask your employees to have these cross-functional roles. So people that were mostly engaged in the marketing would be now engaged in the technology, and those in the technology would be more engaged in business development and so forth. Because first of all, again, it has to do with the lean model. And secondly, it might motivate your workers and employees. Of course, it would contribute with interesting insights and ways of thinking and even mindsets of the different disciplines. So, and you can actually build something that is really interesting in terms of your next steps of your HR. So I would really suggest that. And I spoke with some startups that are starting this cross-functional rolling procedure, and they said that there is a very dynamic atmosphere. People are talking to each other, again, remotely, everything, but this is something that is really, it's very meaningful. So why not doing it? The third thing is outsourcing, and it has to do with the platform of the market that I showed you. So people now are temporarily unemployed. Some of them are maybe permanently unemployed. This is a very good time to work with outsourcing. So you contribute to those people, you contribute to the community and to the ecosystem, but you also get specialized performance and activities and projects in a cheaper budget. So it's very important to do that too. Another thing is the remote work should be very friendly user and very easy. If you want to maintain your meetings and the digital, as I told you, one of the startups has started this digital platform with the customer. So if you want to maintain those and really keep the remote work on, it has to be the most friendly and the simplest way. If you have to pay for the Zoom or for anything, then do that, because otherwise people will not engage. And if you want to keep things in motion, it has to be simple. I think that it was Steve Jobs who said, if you want to keep something, make it simple. Then the fifth point is very interesting, because I hear from people, from startup managements and founders, that they say that the workplace is interrupted at the moment. Lots of absences and nothing is stable. So prepare yourself for this interruption. This interruption is the routine right now. It's not an interruption anymore. So embrace it. Embrace asynchronic processes. Be very clear about what you want to achieve, what you want to deliver. Make it very transparent. Provide flexibility. People are at home now, they have kids, they have other things to do. Some of them are stressed, some of them they don't have the energy. So there is no point to stick with the standard office hours and with the deliveries that you were used to. Be much more flexible, and I think that the main thing is to not to see those interruptions as something that is a catastrophe, but something that is a changing way of managing your startup. Then the sixth point is to prioritize even your revenues. Many people say to me from the startups, we want to grow, we have our vision, we are in the midst of negotiating investments, now it's the time. Yes and no. I mean, you have to be you have to get the best touch with the ground. You have to see if this is the right time really to grow, or it's a better time to reduce your projects and to keep in motion, of course, but to reduce something and maybe to put your energies in a different angle, like mail from the tourism platform or anything else. So just prioritize and see things from a very short term. When you look at the long term, at the moment, in the midst of the crisis, you will be a bit distressed. But if you look on very little span and short run, then you can control this, and you can do something that will be maybe beneficial for the here and now, and maybe for later too. Ensure liquidity. This is important. So you don't have to make the storage and to buy everything and to be afraid that nothing will remain and because and there will be shortages of supplies, you have to be aware of what you spend in order to promise your actually survival and sustainability. It's very important. And finally, consider at least temporary reduction of contract and make it small scale contract, again, to make sure that you can control. If you need another expert, you can outsource. If you need any kind of machinery or any kind of processes, then you can afford it. And then altogether, you can make it, as I said, in motion and prepare for the next step. And maybe the most important thing is consider very, very carefully the impact of closing or restricting your activity. It would be very, very damaging for the future. I do not believe in the restart. Many people say when everything is done and we get back to normal, I will restart my startup. I am not advocate of that. I think that you have to, in various paces, but you have to keep things in motion. So this is what I think. And this is what I had to share with you today. As I said before, my team is here also with the participants. They are experts. Each one of them is expert in a different discipline. It's amazing to see how startups react to those online sessions. They are all for free. What we do is we schedule with startups, each one startup at a time. We are 6 experts, 7 actually experts, and we work together with the startup in order to decipher each one of the suggestions of the directions and to see how specifically it could be adjusted to the startup. So this is something that we contribute to you with great love and passion for the ecosystem of entrepreneurship, and really we strive to maintain it and to keep it and to empower it. So thank you very much, and I'm open now for questions. So if you have questions, I'm here for the questions. If you want to get in touch with me, so everything is there. There is my contact details are there, and my team's contact details also, and we are very happy to provide, as I said, for free, any type of mentorship, any type of brainstorming together, networking, anything that we can empower you and contribute for you. So I just want to see if we have other questions. I don't think so. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity. It was great. I mean, I didn't see you, so but I felt like I do. And please feel free to contact me for anything you want to know more. And Anya, if you want to get more information about your specific questions, so please let me know. Thank you very much, and good health to all of you. And once again, thank you very much for the consulate, the Israeli consulate in Germany. It's such a pleasure to work with you together. Thank you. Bye-bye.